Alright, so as you guys may have heard, Huawei just lost their license to Android, which is only a small part of a much larger story, which we're not going to get into here. But basically what this means is that Huawei devices are no longer going to receive Android OS updates, and future Huawei devices will not have access to Google services. This includes the Google Play Store, apps like Gmail, YouTube, Chrome, pretty much anything that requires a license from Google. And because Honor is a sub-brand to Huawei, we assume that Honor is going to be affected by this as well. And the Honor 20 Pro goes from being a device that I could definitely recommend because it has a lot of really great hardware and a lot of really great features, to a device that I'm a little bit more apprehensive with recommending because of its uncertainty with software updates. And software updates are important. Software updates are very critical, and nobody wants to buy a brand new smartphone that has the potential of zero prospect for getting software updates. Now, this review is being filmed a day before the Honor launch event, so we don't know exactly how Honor plans to address this, and we also don't have any information in terms of pricing and availability because Honor typically doesn't disclose that information ahead of time. So if you guys want to stay updated on all the Honor 20 Pro news, make sure to check out the written review, which we'll have linked in the description below. Software issues aside, the Honor 20 Pro doesn't do anything extensive or gimmicky, but it has a lot of excellent hardware. For starters, you have the powerful Kiran 980 processor that Huawei has used in many of their recent smartphones like the P30 and P30 Pro, and the Honor View 20 that was released a few months ago. You're also getting plenty of RAM and plenty of internal storage, so performance is not an issue here. It's very smooth in regular daily use, and even though this isn't a gaming phone, it's very well optimized for some of the most popular high-end gaming titles like PUBG Mobile and Fortnite. Battery life is also just as good, but with a 4,000 milliamp hour battery, I didn't really expect anything less. I'm able to hit 6 hours of screen on time pretty easily and consistently, even with a lot of my time being spent playing games. It does have fast charging with Honor's Supercharge, but there is no wireless charging if you want to go the wireless route, and it also does not have a headphone jack. The overall design is fairly standard territory. It's got a glass back with a metal frame and a large, nearly bezel-less screen. To achieve this, Honor's gone with the hole punch approach for the front-facing camera, and it's pretty small, doesn't really get in the way, and for the most part, you'll pretty much forget that it's there. The only time you'll really notice it is when you're using an app with a lighter background or watching a video in full screen. It does have a fingerprint sensor, but it's not an in-screen fingerprint sensor. It's a physical sensor, and it's actually placed on the side, which is something that we don't really see all that often. If you use your phone in your right hand, it's in a very comfortable spot for your thumb, but it's probably not the most ideal placement if you like using your phone in your left hand. Honor sort of made a big deal about the glass back. It has what they're calling a dynamic holographic design, and it's not something that will make you run out and buy the phone, but it is very trippy to look at. It's supposed to give you a sense of depth, and it certainly does do that. I'm not entirely sure how well it's going to come across on camera, but the best way that I can describe it is it sort of feels like you're looking through a window and not just a reflection on a regular sheet of glass. It's one of those things that you'll probably have to see in person to really appreciate. The main attraction with the Honor 20 Pro is really the cameras. There's a total of 4 cameras on the back, and I like the approach that Honor is taking. It's a camera system that provides a lot of versatility in terms of focal lengths. The main sensor is the 48 megapixel Sony IMX, which is a sensor that is currently being used in a lot of smartphones. You also get a 16 megapixel wide angle camera and an 8 megapixel telephoto lens that provides 3x optical zoom and a 5x hybrid zoom. You can also zoom all the way up to 30x, but anything beyond 5x is purely digital at that point, so I definitely don't recommend using it unless you absolutely have to, because the fall off in detail is pretty harsh. The last camera is this tiny little sensor here. It's a 2 megapixel camera for macro photography, and it lets you get the camera within 2 inches of a subject and still be able to pull focus, which is something you can't do with the other lenses. The downside is it's only 2 megapixels, so the images aren't that sharp and the colors are pretty washed out. The main camera takes really great looking photos, and every phone that I've used with this 48 megapixel Sony sensor has performed extremely well, so I wasn't all too surprised by the results. There's tons of detail, great dynamic range, and I like Honor's color reproduction. It's still colorful, but it doesn't go overboard with saturation. The wide angle and telephoto lens are of course extremely useful in all sorts of situations, and because the 3x zoom is completely optical, you're not losing any detail, and even at 5x, images are still incredibly sharp. It's not quite as impressive as the zoom on the Huawei P30 Pro, but being able to zoom in at 3x or 5x and still capture a crisp and clear image is definitely very useful. The Honor 20 Pro also performs really well in low light, especially if you use the Super Night mode. The Super Night mode will not only give you a brighter image, but you'll also get much more details in the shadows and highlights. It works by taking multiple images at different exposures and stacking them together. It takes about 5 to 6 seconds to do this, so it's not going to be something you'll want to use all the time, and it won't really work with moving subjects, but anytime you get the opportunity to use it, you definitely should. So that's pretty much gonna do it for this review of the Honor 20 Pro. Overall, I think it's a really solid smartphone that checks a lot of the right boxes. It has a great design, great performance, good battery life, and it also has a really great camera that's extremely versatile with the 4 different lenses. But again, the whole Huawei situation sort of changes things a little bit. We don't know what's gonna happen with the software on this phone when it gets released. We don't know if it's gonna get updated. So if you do decide to buy this phone, that is something that you have to keep in mind, and it's something that you really need to be aware of when you make this purchase. But that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Subscribe down below if you haven't already, and I will talk to you guys in the next video.